where you are, but it is definitely cold and rainy in New Jersey. And hopefully this evening will warm you up a little bit. We have some exciting people who share their stories, and some people from the Good People Fund staff and board that I'd like to introduce all of you to. The idea for our gatherings came about as we were putting together an 18-year celebration. For me, it's a little overwhelming to realize that we've been doing this for 18 years. It seems many times like it was only yesterday. It was a time of a bit of trauma, but 18 years have been very kind to us, and I think it's very appropriate that as we are in the 18 years, if you all read the Journal of Good, you know that I am going to be stepping down as the executive director, and Julie Fisher, who you can see here, will be stepping into my role, and I will be taking a different role within the organization. I discovered as the founder that this is my baby and it's very hard to step away completely. So I'm going to be able to do some very fun and interesting things continuing with the organization. We have a lot of family members with us tonight, and so I would like to. Good People Fund has always been, we've always considered things to be family-like, and so I would like to introduce all of our immediate family members who are here, starting, of course, with Julie Fisher, our incoming executive director, Beth Gansky, who is our chair, and will be speaking very shortly. We have Andrea Good. Those of you who have interacted with Andrea, this is her in the flesh, and her last name really is Good. And Glenn Rosenkrantz, who is our marketing communications specialist. We have board members, Jody Harberger from Baltimore, Peter Freemark from snowy Cleveland, and Mark Nelson from 5 minutes away from me, Steve Molman from another 5 minutes in a different direction for me, Greg Nathanson from cold and snowy Detroit, and let's see, I'm just scrolling around here just to make sure that
Stacy.
And Stacy Slater of Sachs, who is 10 minutes away from me. So our center is actually moving south, so that will change. That will change over time. I would like to open the conversation to Beth Gansky, who stepped in as our board chair this year during this very momentous year. Not sure she realized what she was getting into, but she's having fun.
Thank you, Naomi. Hi, everyone. It's so nice to be with all of you. Whenever I start remarks, I usually say, I start with saying, Da lifnei me'ata omed, which means know before whom you stand. Tonight, it's more like know before whom you sit, because most of us are sitting. But I always think who's in the room with me. And tonight, it's such an honor to greet you as the board chair of the Good People Fund. It's such a privilege to be able to serve in this capacity along with my other friends on the board, and we really are all friends now. And our goal tonight is to give you an update as to what's going on, for you to hear from Naomi, for some of you who have not met Julie yet, to meet Julie, and to hear from a couple of grantees to really ground us in the work that we're all about with the Good People Fund. So there's so many things that take my breath away about the Good People Fund. Over the last 18 years, we have supported over 250 programs. That kind of takes my breath away. It takes my breath away of the scope of what we do. And I hope most of you have received your Journal of Good. And if you haven't, please make a note in the chat and we'll make sure to get one to you so that you could read about what all 63 of our grantees are doing, the ones that we are currently working with. I'm excited that I've had the opportunity to work so closely with Naomi. It is her vision, her unwavering support of Good People, and her personal touch that has made the Good People Fund what it is. She's the champion. She's the founding executive director. And as you know, she is stepping down and we're certainly not letting her go. She will be staying on as in a encore role, and we couldn't be happier about that. Our board is also so grateful that Julie Fisher will step into the role of executive director beginning next July. I'll use Julie's words that she wrote in the Journal of Good. For me, this new role is both professionally and personally meaningful. The Good People Fund has become a home where my passion and vision for change can take root and flourish. I'm inspired daily by our grantees, our supports, and by the power of small actions leading to huge impacts that have defined GPF since its inception. For me, becoming involved with Good People Fund as a board member and as someone who is an ambassador goes back to when I was 16 years old. I was visiting Israel for the first time with a U.S.-wide pilgrimage group. Rabbi Moshe Edelman was my leader, the madrich of our group, and he introduced us to a buddy of his, someone he went to rabbinical school by, a man named Danny Siegel, who I know many of you know. And Danny took us that day in Jerusalem to visit a place called Yad LaKashish, Lifeline for the Old. I'm sure many of you have known of it, and if you're lucky enough, you will have been there. And I sat there as a 16-year-old meeting Miriam Mendelow, who was the founding director of Lifeline for the Old, which is an organization that basically gave honor and kavod back to elderly immigrants to Israel who really didn't have anything to do back in the 1960s and 70s, it was really 1970s, and created workshops for these senior citizens to give them a purpose to live again. But what struck me was this woman, Miriam, who was less than 5 feet tall, talked about how she saw an issue, she saw a challenge, she saw a problem, and she decided to do something about it. And as 16-year-old Beth, I sat there going, wow, one person could actually do that? That's incredible. She saw a problem, she came up with a solution, and look what she has created. And that has stayed with me throughout my life. My family supported Tzedakah Fund for many, many years because I came home. I shared the story with my mom. Every year we sent a check. And then, like many of us, life got busy and I kind of followed Civ and then I didn't. I wasn't even sure like what happened to it. And about 4 years ago, when I was leaving my full-time job and wanted to dedicate myself to an organization that I could give my time to, I did my own homework and I read about the Good People Fund and I was like, this is very familiar. And I reached and I looked to see who was on the board, and luckily someone from Baltimore, Jody Harberger, was on the board, and I reached out to him and I said, tell me more. And he told me more, and he introduced me to Naomi and to Larry Paul, who was the board chair, and lucky for me, they invited me to serve on the board, and I now, have the privilege of being the chair. And it all came back from being inspired by one person. And I think that's what we at the Good People Fund, and that's what Naomi has taught us, is that it's all about the people. And so I want to thank each of you for being here because you're part of the Good People community. If you've been a supporter of ours for 18 years or you're just finding out about us, you're in the right place. So I want to thank you for being here. The one other thing I do want to share with you is one of the things that we did over the last years. We did a strategic plan, and it was a wonderful deep dive into our work, and we came up with five priorities that we are now working on. And I want to just share those with you so you could see where the direction is what that we're going in. One is that so our priorities are, number one is strengthening our program. And I know Julie will talk more about how we are doing that, but we are working with our grantees very deeply in lots of different areas. we're looking to ensure financial sustainability. So we know that we have to raise more funds in order for us to be doing the work. We're moving from from a founder organization led by Naomi to being led by a small team, and we're growing, and there's need for us. So we need to ensure our financial sustainability. We're refreshing our governance, and our board is working really hard in doing that. We've created new committees. We're looking for people to be engaged. We're bringing on more mentors. So our governance is taking on a whole refresh. We're strengthening our infrastructure because we know we need to be strong and have efficient systems in place to be able to serve the needs of our grantees. And we're leading a thoughtful transition, any transition from a founder-led organization of 18 years to one that's growing how we are. We're trying to do it with grace and with thoughtfulness, and I think we're doing okay. So those are the priorities that we are thinking about each day now. I'm so excited to be going with Julie and Naomi in February to Israel to meet all of our Israel grantees and to learn more about them. And so I couldn't be happier to be sitting in this chair with each of you tonight. So I am going to turn this back to Naomi, who can offer some more formal remarks on what's going on from her seat right now. So thank you.
Thanks, Beth. I think I covered a lot of what I was going to say when I started speaking to everybody. It's a very interesting place to be right now to be going through this transition. There are many things I can think of that would be more pleasant. It's not an easy process, but it's a very necessary one. I don't think that any of us who were part of starting the Good People Fund 18 years ago ever realized what it was going to become. And the fact that there is an opportunity for this work to continue is more than I can ask for. Julie and I met 8 years ago in Israel, and it was our mutual friend, Gideon Ben-Ami, who those of you who follow our work might recognize the name Gideon. He's the founder of Pessia's Kitchen, and he is a very dear friend. And one day he said to me, when the time comes, because Gideon is a contemporary of mine, and we often talked about what would happen to our work when we decided that we could no longer do it, or somebody else decided that we could no longer do it. He said, I met somebody. I have a person in mind when you decide that you want to throw it all in. And I said, really? And he said, yeah, at that time we were celebrating our 10th anniversary, and we had a little gathering in Israel. And he said, let me bring my friend, Julie Fisher. And Julie, I'll let you pick up the rest of the story.
Okay, hang on just. And I'm also doing the tech for the, so it takes me a minute. All right, I'll take over. But first of all, thank you all so much for being here and for your being an important part of our community. Whether you have known the Good People Fund since the earliest days of Ziv Tzedakah Fund, which I also, living in Duluth, Minnesota, heard about Ziv Tzedakah Fund and the incredible work that was being done. Or whether you're meeting us for the first time, thank you for spending tonight with us. So during this year of celebrating 18 years of good, we've been traveling around a little bit in person. We were in Baltimore, we were in Kensington, Maryland, and we are going to be in New Jersey and other places. So we wanted to have a chance for you to join us online, wherever you are in the world, to join us in celebrating 18 years of good, because you're the ones who made this possible. Under Naomi's visionary leadership, you all have built not only an organization, but a community grounded in humility, trust, and a belief in people. So 18 years of lifting up extraordinary people, widening the circle of compassion, and showing what becomes possible when we invest in quiet, powerful acts that change lives. I often think back to that night that Naomi is describing, the night I first met Naomi, which was almost exactly 8 years ago in Tel Aviv. And our dear friend Gideon of Pasia's Kitchen, who some of you know, he insisted that I come and meet his friend Naomi. And I had no idea who Naomi was at that time. I hadn't made the connection between Ziv Tzedakah Fund that I had known years before and the Good People Fund. So I really didn't know what I was walking into, other than he asked me to join for this 10th anniversary and to meet his friend Naomi. And I always said to Gideon, I followed him everywhere and did what I could to support his good work. So I followed him to the restaurant. I dragged my husband along with me. We went. I gave a little welcome to the group. I met Naomi. We have a photo, and if you have the Journal of Good, it's on page 11 of Naomi and I, literally the first moment that we met. Which I treasure. I treasured then, but I certainly treasure now, knowing that our lives are intertwined in this beautiful way. So what happened in that restaurant was quite magical. Grantee after grantee stood up, shared their beautiful, beautiful stories of impact and inspiration. And I just remember sitting there thinking, this is what goodness looks like. I don't really know all the details yet, but I want to be a part of this. And from that night on, I was hooked, and Naomi became a trusted mentor and a friend. And today, as we enter this new chapter together, I'm honored to be asked to step up to lead the Good People Fund that span time, keeping us linked to the founding values and vision, and the sacrosanct belief that small actions of good, of caring, of kindness, of healing, and compassion lead to huge impacts. And our impact coming out of the strategic plan, as Beth shared with you, our impact is increasing. We now are proud to say that we have 4 pillars of support that we give to our grantees: education, community, mentoring, and granting. And it all really still comes down to the core of the relationship with our good people, with our social visionaries. So what continues to inspire me every day is our good people who show up every day for their communities with courage and creativity and resolve, and most importantly, with compassion, as they address the societal issues that they see in their communities. And we endeavor to do everything we can to support them as they grow and increase their impact. So tonight, you're going to have a chance to meet 2 of our extraordinary leaders. And it is my great pleasure to introduce Max Levitt, founder of Leveling the Playing Field, a remarkable organization ensuring that every child, regardless of background or situation, has access to the joy, confidence, and connection that comes from participating in sports with the equipment they need to make it possible. Max embodies the spirit of the Good People Fund, seeing a need, stepping forward, and transforming compassion into action. So I want to invite Max.
Thank you,
Let me
Julie.
highlight him. You're welcome. Welcome, welcome, Max. I also was able to go and visit Max since he was a local grantee. When I first started 2 years ago, I met Max as in my very first few weeks of the Good People Fund. Okay, where are you? I'm just going to spotlight you. Hang on one second.
Thank you.
Take it away.
Yeah. So I obviously Julie shared enough about leveling the playing field. Just very briefly, and then I'll talk more about just my experience with Naomi and this awesome family and group that I've been fortunate to be a part of. But leveling the playing field, it's the best way to think about what we do, if you've never heard of it, is it's essentially a food bank for sports equipment. So the focus of the organization is on removing the cost of sports equipment as a financial barrier for kids in more under-resourced communities so they can access the mental and physical benefits that come with playing youth sports. Anybody who played sports or have kids who play sports can understand how valuable that activity is to your kids' happiness, well-being, meeting friends, learning life skills, having something to do. That's really everything that the organization is about. I started this organization literally out of college. I did not study nonprofit management. I never worked for a nonprofit. Frankly, I wasn't even really sure what a nonprofit was. Um, and as I started this kind of entrepreneurial endeavor, what we do as an organization was we collect sports equipment from people and we redistribute it to people who need it. It's a very simple model. I was very confident in my ability to collect sports equipment and redistribute it. And in fact, for the first couple of years, it was something that I did just kind of on the side. I had a job and it was something that I did on my weekends and in the evenings. And we were collecting a lot of equipment and impacting a lot of kids. But as the organization began to organically grow, I was really concerned about, it was clear to me that I needed to do this full time, or someone needed to do this full time. I was really not sure how to raise money. I did not there, I knew how to collect equipment. I knew how to redistribute it. That's pretty basic. That has very little to do with nonprofit management and understanding boards of directors and 501(c)(3)s and raising money and all the different things that are wrapped up into nonprofit management. And Diane Shillett, who is on this call, introduced me to Naomi really like before I had left my full-time job to take this on because I really wasn't convinced that this was something I could raise money for. And I've never asked anybody for money in my life or philanthropically. I still remember vividly the phone call I had with Naomi and just we spoke for such a long time and it really started an incredible relationship. First of all, they became one of our very first funders, and that is something that Good People Fund does for a lot of young social entrepreneurs, which was not just provide funding, but provide young people like myself with the confidence that these ideas that we have that are impacting people and creating social impact can be funded, right? All of these organizations are great, but can you raise the money to fulfill a budget and scale your impact? And that early kind of funding that we got from the Good People Fund was a huge confidence boost for me. Like I was really not confident whatsoever in my ability to raise money, and that made a tremendous difference in my ability to leave my job and have the courage to take this on. And then beyond that, like Naomi has just always been someone who has been willing to connect with me outside of the funding. Like anytime I called her, any question I ever had, she helped me avoid a lot of mistakes early on in my career. I wanted to do fundraising events. I thought about hiring a development consultant early on, things that would have been big mistakes for the organization that Naomi helped steer us away from. And then most recently, we've outgrown Good People Fund many years ago, but Naomi's always still willing to talk to me. And even most recently, I very recently decided to step away after 15 years of running my organization. But before I had made that decision, one of the first people I called when I started mulling this decision was Naomi. And she did the same thing she's always done, which is give me her advice, which is valued. But she does something that she does for all of us as grantees and former grantees, is she introduced me to a handful of people who now, what little did I know, Naomi was going through the same thing herself and personally with Good People Fund, but she introduced me, as she always did, to people who have come across these challenges before. Previously, it was fundraising or expansion or various hiring our first internal bookkeeper, first development person. She's always been the person who's introduced me to people to learn from their experience. And most recently, this massive decision of whether I wanted to step away or not, she once again introduced me to people. So this is like one of the only foundations that I have found in my 15-year career doing this that does invest in young social entrepreneurs who are like, if you take an investment term, like this is like a pre-Series A investment firm, the Good People Fund. And, there's some risk involved in that, but there have been some incredible success stories. Leveling the Playing Field, hopefully being one of them. We're now a national organization in 7 cities. When I first met Naomi, we were operating out of my parents' basement. Didn't have the courage to leave my job. And so she has played a massive role in my organization's growth, my own professional development. And I know as I go into my next professional career, she will always be one of my first calls when I come across a challenge I want to answer. So that's just one story, but there's, I've engaged with so many grantees and they're all the same story. it's all been just a huge difference in our professional development and funding our organizations. So appreciate being here, and I'm excited to continue being a part of this family, even though I'm no longer a grantee. I know that this is a group I'll always be able to be a part of. Very grateful for that.
Thank you, Max. That was a beautiful statement. And I have to say, Max was one of the best students I ever had because he always came for advice. And he appreciated it, and he let me know that he appreciated it. The fact that leveling the playing field is now in 7 cities is pretty astounding. As he said, it was first in his father's garage, which is where so many of our programs start, in someone's garage or someone's basement. And I saw in Max something that, I don't know, my gut is a pretty good indicator, and I took a bet. And it was a good bet. And when Max came to me last summer, I guess it was, and said, I think I said to you, go for it. I think I encouraged you.
You did. You said
And
it sounds like this is time.
Yes, I think I gave you permission. And this was not the first conversation that I've had like that with founders. And sometimes just someone giving you permission is all you need to make that step.
And know how rare it is for, I mean, we have 75 plus funders who fund us at a pretty decent level. I don't have a funder that I can go to at that type of a conversation. That there was only one funder. I mean, there are a lot of mentors in my life I could go to, but there was only one funder I could go to who I knew had those conversations before, right? Like I knew Naomi had that conversation with people before. So it was just so hard to replicate the value for me in navigating a decision like that.
Yeah. Being a founder of an organization, unless you are that person, I don't think it's possible for others to understand the implications, the very personal implications of what you give up, and how very cherished it is. And to make that decision to step away is very, very difficult. And I remember saying to you, if this is what you want, you do it. And don't feel guilty about it. I'm waiting for the next chapter, Max.
Me too. I'm excited about it. Thank you. Thank you, Naomi.
We also have with us tonight.
Not quite yet. Yeah, maybe we'll take a break and have a few questions. Cara is just finishing up her board meeting and
okay.
and will join us momentarily.
I didn't think I saw her, so I was was wondering.
Yeah. Do you want to either talk some more or take a few questions, and I'll just check in with her?
Yeah. Anybody that has any questions right now that either for Max or for any of us, we have another grantee who is joining us, Cara Solomon, from up in Boston, and
she's signing on now.
She's signing on. Okay.
Sorry.
I hope she can catch her breath. Hi, Cara.
Hello.
Hi. How are you?
Good. It's so good to see you all.
Okay. Julia can highlight her, and I'll give a little bit of a catch your breath.
Okay.
Cara is with us from the cold and snowy city of Boston. Cara is the founder of Everyday Boston, a very interesting and very, very important organization right now in the times, for the times in which we are living. I met Cara through Social Innovation Forum, I believe it was,
Yeah.
which is a group in Boston that selects certain nonprofits to. It's sort of like an incubator, and they've been a great resource for us for finding impactful programs that are run by very special people. And when I met Cara and I heard about Everyday Boston, I was like, no brainer. I will let you talk about Everyday Boston.
Okay. Thank you so much, Naomi. I'll share a little bit about how amazing the Good People Fund is in a little bit, but I suppose I'll tell you a little bit about Everyday Boston first. So as Naomi said, my name is Cara. I am the founder and creative director of Everyday Boston. We are a nonprofit that helps people, sorry, you might see my dog, helps people helps people develop the skills and the confidence to connect with people they might not otherwise know or understand. And we do that through the sharing of life stories. So I actually started the organization in 2014 as a story collecting project. And the whole idea was to try and dismantle some of the stereotypes that were circulating around the city. Boston's a very tribal city, as you may or may not know. And these stereotypes were doing significant damage to particularly communities of color, but all across the board, and was damaging the way that people in one neighborhood saw people in another, and the way that people in that neighborhood saw themselves, because of the stereotypes. I think that the media was circulating and reinforcing, and because stereotypes are a thing no matter where you go, right? So the idea was that we would band together, myself and 4 other community leaders from different neighborhoods in Boston. And we came up with, we launched this project. And the idea really was to build community as we recorded the stories of neighbors who might not otherwise be heard on the evening news. And over the course of several years, I sort of took it on as a full-time thing, left my job. And the organization has really grown only according to what community members have said that they would like to see. So, for instance, we started as a story collecting project, and then people were, I taught people. I'm a former newspaper reporter. I taught people how to interview as a way of connecting. And so we were collecting the stories of folks and putting them on the website. And then some folks in the neighborhood said, I'm not really interested in learning how to interview somebody in depth, but I'd love to come to an event where people are sharing stories. So then we started story share events. And then people were thinking to themselves, the stories are great, but the fact is that we don't, as a society, particularly young people, but people all across the board, we just don't have the skills that we need anymore to really communicate with people. And this interviewing thing actually seems like a way to learn that. So that's how we developed the Curiosity and Connection curriculum. And we started bringing that into schools because people wanted it in schools. And then people in workplaces said, you know what, we've got a real problem with belonging in our workplace. So we took it into workplaces and prisons. And along the way, we're focusing with working with people all across the board, but along the way, there's a real focus on, we developed a real focus on people coming home from prison. Because if you think about the kinds of stereotypes that those folks are facing and the consequences for them facing those stereotypes, they're significant. So what we've started to do is we created this thing called the Bridge Project. And the Bridge Project is folks come home from prison, we train them up in our Curiosity and Connection curriculum, and then they are the ones who run our community events. So right now, today, we have, we reach about 1,500 people across the city, and we do it through 3 main, we have a 3-pronged approach. We have community events, conversation stations in the community that anybody can stop by and meet a neighbor they might not otherwise know. Then we have this skills training that we bring into workplaces and prisons and nonprofits and schools. And then we continue to do story collecting. And our overall vision is that Boston becomes the most connected city in America, which we believe can happen. So that's what we've been up to. And I will just sort of share before I talk a little bit about Good People Fund. I will share a story about why this matters to me personally. I think we all know the national context, the global context, and we all feel the importance of human connection in all different kinds of ways. But we are sort of a storytelling organization, so I want to tell you a quick little story. So a few years ago, I was in the basement of a YMCA. I was surrounded by fifth graders. They all had their hands raised because we were doing a workshop and they were interviewing me about my life, which is part of the workshop. And so this tall boy at the back, I called on him and he asked me an interesting question. He said, "Do you have a father?" And I said, "Actually, I don't. My dad died when I was 2 months old." And so everyone went kind of quiet. These are fifth graders. They got really scared. And I said, "You know what? Don't worry. My mom and we did okay. We all right." And so, other kids are asking me questions, and then 5 minutes later, I see his hand come up again. And so I called on him again. And he looked at me and he said, "What was your father's dream for you?" And here comes the dog. And it's very interested. Anyway, he asked that question, and it really stopped me in my tracks because I had literally never thought about that before. And so I said to him, "I don't know because, he died before I knew him, but I heard that he was a really kind person. So maybe his dream for me, was that I would be kind." And, this little boy, he looked at me and he said, "You are kind." And it just kind of took my breath away. And found out later that his dad had died 6 months earlier. And so that's where the question came from. But in that moment, I was standing across from him and I really won't ever forget it. Mid-40s woman from suburban Boston, grew up in a Jewish household. This was a boy who I think he'd just come over from El Salvador, his family, crossed around his neck, 11 years old, 10, 11 years old. And in that moment, I really felt like I belonged to him and he belonged to me. And we might never see each other again. I'm sure we won't, but I will carry that boy with me, honestly, for the rest of my life. And I don't know, somewhere in his mind, he might carry me with him too. And I just really believe that that's what human beings were born to do. That's what they were designed to do. And we are not doing it enough. And so Everyday Boston it's about bringing that back. And I have to say that it's sometimes you say the power of human connection. You talk about this kind of thing, and people, funders in particular, are kind of like, "Okay, well, where's the evidence? What's the metric? What's this kind of thing?" And from the moment I met Naomi, like it was clear that she just got it on a cellular level, and she knew its importance, and she believed in its importance. And I am what I would call an accidental leader. I had no intention of becoming a nonprofit leader. I had no intention of being in leadership at all. I have gotten over a crippling fear of public speaking. You are talking to somebody who is not designed, for the nonprofit world necessarily. And, Naomi has just sort of taken my hand and been at the other end of the phone every step of the way. Good People Fund has funded, the Bridge Project, which a lot of folks don't necessarily want to. In other words, work with formerly incarcerated folks. It has given me the power to. So I love the model, which is sort of asking me first what we need and then funding. You have no idea how. I mean, maybe you do know how unusual that is. There is a trend, from what I understand, called trust-based philanthropy. And I think Good People Fund that's what it is. Like, it's a safe place. That's just unbelievably unheard of for grantees, I think, to be able to say that a funder is a safe place to go and to talk and to share. And, Julie has stepped in as continuing that same tradition. So I feel incredibly grateful being in the nonprofit world. Starting your own thing, having a tiny organization is a very lonely place to be. And I don't have to be alone in it. Good People Fund has really come through in every way and supported me and this work in ways that I can't describe, but I'm incredibly grateful for. So,
Cara, would you tell everybody a little bit about the other project, the Medical Trust?
oh yeah, sure.
I think that is so, it
Yeah,
says a lot. It really
yeah,
does say a lot.
sure. So we have what we call special initiatives with Everyday Boston, and that is those are instances where we're sort of using all of our tools and we're applying them to a societal problem, and we're going deep with it, and it's intense work. One of those projects is Storytelling to Build Medical Trust. This was a project that we started with Boston Medical Center, which is a safety net hospital in Boston, during the pandemic, when there was a lot of talk about vaccine hesitancy in communities of color, and a lot of focus on like, why aren't people signing up for the vaccine? And obviously, there are a lot of reasons, but deep mistrust born of racism and bias is a big factor. And so the idea here was that we would do this. We got some funding to partner up with Boston Medical Center to look under the hood of that mistrust through the sharing of stories, and to really amplify the voices of BIPOC community members about their experiences. We partnered up with BIPOC-led organizations for a 3-phase project. The first was restorative justice circles between providers and community members. The second one was a story collecting project where we had formerly incarcerated members of Everyday Boston interviewing other community members about their experiences with bias in the medical system. And this third phase that we're in right now actually moved on to NIH funding, which unbelievably we have not lost. And it's this phase that's around, it's deeply driven by the first 2 phases of that project, where we're listening to people's stories. And there are many, many, many reasons why people had negative experiences in the hospitals and in healthcare. But the thing that was consistent across the board, every person who had a negative story to tell about healthcare, they talked about the lack of humanity that they felt in those interactions. And every time something went well, it was always because people felt seen, heard, and appreciated. And so this learning series that we're doing right now is driven by that. It's a humanity first learning series. It's a 3-part learning series. We started, we piloted a small version of it about a year ago. We brought together community members with medical students at 4 different medical schools: Harvard, UMass, Tufts, and BU. That went so well. People felt so connected even after a 3-hour session that the NIH, we got more funding. So we are now embarking on, or we're in the throes of a 2-year project where we are going to be bringing together 4 cohorts. Each cohort has 15 healthcare providers and 15 community members. And those cohorts, 3-session series. It's a humanity first series. They're going through our curiosity and connection workshop first. Then they're exploring the nature of trust, what it takes to keep it, what it takes to earn it, how can you lose it? And then they're going to work in the 3rd session on a collaborative project to really strengthen the patient-provider relationship. So that's going to be 120 people that will go through this series, NIH funded, and we're actually finalists on another NIH grant that is similar to sort of use these same tools and the same approach to look at genetic testing and how we can build some trust around there.
Thank you. I think after listening to Cara, you can all understand why we were attracted to this program, which is so incredibly beautiful, so incredibly important, and probably something that most people would not have thought about. And I think that's one of the things that is so unique about our programs is that we look intentionally for things that are unusual, because as we say, our good people have found creative ways to solve the world's problems, and many of those problems are not generally recognized. It's their own personal experiences. Max didn't mention this when he spoke, but Max was I believe, the equipment manager in college, and he saw in August how much equipment got thrown out by the football team because there was new equipment coming, and he said, "Wow, what this could do," and that was really the driving force to eventually creating leveling the playing field. So I think both Cara and Max do represent very well what we, the Good People Fund, look for and want to help support. So I thank both of you for giving us the time tonight. And I would like to open this up to any questions that people might have for us or for Max or for Cara. If you have anything, just raise your hand. Judy?
Yes. Congratulations on your 18 high years, and it's pretty fantastic. These two grantees are wonderful. I've been a donor for a while. I thought your book this year was fantastic and startling. I had no idea you had so many grantees in Israel and here, which brings me to my question. What's the average amount that you give a year to a grantee? Not the cumulative amount, but the average.
Yeah, our grants generally run in the $10,000 range. They've gotten larger as the years have passed and our ability to give more. But a lot depends on what we have to give. And, when we went through this strategic plan, that was one of our goals, was to be able to increase the amount of our grants. I think in its origins, the Good People Fund was never intended to be a major funder. We were intended to be more than seed funding, but our goal was to not only provide the financial support, but of course, along with the mentoring, but one of our stated goals has always been to make these small, little known programs more visible so that others will join us in funding. And we don't necessarily, we're not going to fund programs that, a federation is funding or a larger funder is working with for the most part. We like to get in early and provide that initial lift.
Talk to you. Just a sec. I don't know how to do all this stuff. Oh my.
Can I just, Lorraine, just before you start, can I just have one follow-up to Julie?
I just wanted to thank you guys for the amazing presentations, for the amazing work you do. You are an inspiration in so many ways, and I can't believe how privileged I feel to be able to help in my own little small way and to watch how you've grown. It's just simply miraculous. And thank you. I have to leave. Bye.
Thank you, Lorraine. Thank you so much.
I was just going to ask, I think giving seed money where groups don't have funders and the kind of groups that you have done, and mentoring new leaders in the nonprofit world are critical to sustain them when they're dealing with various problems. But I wonder whether there's a time when you say, you as a board, say, these groups are launched. They've got major funding from wherever. They're in multiple cities. They have local support.
Yes.
Some groups, you know, in this particular case, you're getting NIH grants. At what point do you say, okay, now we're going to stop funding those groups, and we're going to look to new groups to seed or make larger grants?
Right. Julie, you want to?
Sure.
Take
So
that one?
we sadly graduate some of our grantees every year. And it's always it's exciting because it means that we have launched, I mean, not we, but we have supported their development, and they
Right.
have moved out of the emerging sphere, and they have moved into into an area where our small money does not make a big difference. And we keep it. I've now watched for 2 years Naomi saying goodbye and grantees not wanting to leave, and which she always says, and I see it is absolutely true. And as you heard from Max, who is an alum, it is definitely true that we never really say goodbye. Our doors, and my door will also, like Naomi's, always be open to our grantees to come back and to ask for advice and to be a thought partner. But our grants are then, as you've pointed out, our grants then need to go to social visionaries who are at the beginning of their stage so that we can make sure that that continues. And one thing that we've really seen is that there are very few organizations like the Good People Fund who are willing to take a chance and to give that seed money in this area of the philanthropic ecosystem. So what our value added is hugely important, and it's important that we continue to stay in our area and do very, very well. And you know, I was at a meeting last year after the conference we had in New York, and I was invited to come and support one of our organizations as they gave a pitch to really large foundations. And I was there to be a funder and to cheerlead for them and to say, we love them. At the end of the presentation, someone next to me turned to me and said, someone at a very, very large foundation, and she said, well, how did you decide to invest in them? They had no impact reporting. And I said, right. If we wait for every social visionary to have impact reporting before we give seed money, how are we going to have these incredible emerging social visionaries doing good in this world? There has to be, those of us who will take a chance. It's a smart chance, as Naomi says. She trusts her gut, and I've seen it, and she's amazing in figuring out who should we invest in. And our track record, as we know now, we have over 266 grantees that we've supported. So your question is a really important one.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Well,
Judy.
congratulations
And good to see you.
to all of you. I too have to run, but congratulations.
Thank you very much. I just want to qualify something. Cara, do you want to tell us what the size of the budget is for Everyday Boston? Because NIH grants are not very.
I just wanted to clarify, to say that one thing about the NIH grant. You would think it came with a lot of money, and it really, I think probably net for the organization, general operating or whatever it might, or my time might come up to like 20,000 or something. And it's like, you have no idea how much work it is. It's like that we're being
I
compensated.
do. I've worked in nonprofits, so I do.
Yeah. So, right. But sometimes with the NIH thing, you might think it's a big, so I just wanted to clarify that.
Congrats.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Any further questions from anyone?
I know we're just about time, but I just want to mention one thing because I think it was something important that we learned. Last year, it was just a year ago, November, we gathered all of our current grantees, about 30 from Israel, 30 from the United States, for a conference in New York. We actually called it an unconference. And it really was an amazing space for our grantees to meet each other, to learn, to share. And one of the things that came out of that was we realized our grantees really wanted some more training on some of the technical skills they needed to run their own organization. So just since last year, we have offered, I think I counted, it was 16 separate training workshops that we offer virtually for anyone to come on. So our grantees have come on, they've brought some of their other professional staff, they've brought members of their board. These have all been from about fundraising and working with your board and social media. So it's just another way that we listened to what our grantees were saying they needed and answered in a really powerful way. And that's one of the new things, new initiatives that we've really taken on. And I thought that was important to mention.
Thank you, Beth.
Yes.
Yeah.
To follow up on that, if there are those on the call who have expertise to share or who are interested in being on a committee or to finding out more about the different ways that we serve our grantees, please reach out.
What's happening on May 17th?
Are you a plant, Jody?
Yes, he is.
Naomi, what's happening on May 17th?
Well, on May 17th, I had my arm twisted, and we are going to be celebrating 18 years at a gathering. Just happens to be here in Millburn, New Jersey, where we will be bringing in some of our grantees, two from Israel, and one or two from here in the States to speak. And we will also be asking some of our other grantees to take part in some programming. It's going to be a relatively low-key but very exciting evening where we can honor all the people who helped create this organization. I realize that I am the face of the organization, but I didn't by any means do this by myself. And those of you who know how the Good People Fund started, it really began out of a little bit of trauma. And from that trauma, I went to certain people and said, I'm going to start this over. Will you join me? And there was asked 9 people, 8 people said, I'm behind you. And that's how this organization started in January of 2008. And in September of 2008, we had a very memorable economic downturn, but that was followed by Mr. Madoff and the disasters that he created. But we survived all of that. And I think that that is a testament to what it is that we do, and to the funders who have stood with us to make it happen. So on the 17th of May, we will be having, I think, a very beautiful evening. And I'm looking forward to it. And we will be sending out information as we get a little bit closer. Any other, Mary Lou?
Just a quick, it's a quick question, but it's probably a long answer, and you don't have to answer it all. But of the last 18 years and the 260 plus grantees that you've worked with, what's the sustainability? How do you follow them?
Well, when
Julie
came on board, that allowed us to start to address the things that I couldn't do as a one-man band with a couple of appendages helping. So we did, we had a master list, and we started to go through it and to see who was still in existence. We haven't completed the calculation, but in my encore role, I'm hoping that I will be able to gather the data that will tell us, because I think this isn't a model that I have found anywhere else. And if anybody else knows about it, anybody else knows about something that is quite like this, I would love to know about it. But I think that we are a unique model, and that we can, we have a lot to add to the world of tzedakah in the Jewish community. And those of you who knew Danny Siegel I don't know that he ever thought that what he created would continue. And this is, in essence, what he created, although it has been refined and has, it's 2.0, and I'm sure that Julie in her time will probably create 3.0. But the essence is still there. And so it's a great question, and I'm very anxious to do that deep dive. We certainly know who the success stories are. And a Max, and so many other programs, speaks to the validity of this model. So that's a long answer to your question.
But Naomi, you
Yeah.
also shared with me before that in answer to a different but related question, of all of those that have become alumni, were any of them leaving us having been failures?
No,
I thought that was amazing.
I don't believe that they did.
Yeah.
I know obviously they're not all in existence today. Some of them were very time focused, and their relevance was no longer critical. But I think I'm really looking forward to taking a deep dive. Many of them were very small. They were a creation of someone who had a passion. I remember a woman who was here in New Jersey. I'm sure she's not doing this any longer, but she would go into women's prisons and give out books for the women to read to their children when they came to see them, visit them in prison. Those of you who know this work from the beginning know that many of the programs were really kitchen table. They were not programs that would necessarily change a dynamic in our world. But many today are doing exactly that. And today, I tend to look more for those programs where I think there will be potential for changing how a particular societal problem is dealt with. So that doesn't mean that somebody who's feeding hungry people from the trunk of their car isn't important, but equally important are those that are focused on really systemic change. Any other questions?
One last one from me.
Yes.
Nobody's talked about our response to emergencies.
Okay. Yeah, we have a little known part of our work that we used to call human needs and self-sufficiency, and Julie has now wisely changed it to uplifting lives, which actually is the result of one particular donor who has given us money to do this kind of work, where we actually help individuals who have a critical need, whether it's paying rent, buying food, medical expense. They don't know who we are, but because we have what we call agents, sometimes secret agents, out in the community, many of them are our grantees who are working with specific populations that often do have critical needs. So we have the ability to step in and keep somebody from losing their housing, or I could give a million examples of what is out there. But we have literally saved lives. And I can say that without exaggeration. Any other comments, questions? I don't think there's anything worth watching on television right now.
I have a little question.
Yeah,
There seem to be existential issues that are going on in the world today, and I'm wondering if the Good People Fund does anything in those areas. And I'm thinking of the idea of emigration, and people going from one country to another because of the economic condition or the political condition or that sort of thing. And then climate change and dealing with that sort of existential threat. What is there anything that's going on in the Good People Fund in those areas?
yes. Well, I can say without any unequivocally that the issue of immigration has been on our radar screen for a number of years. What is particularly good about our model is the fact that we can act very quickly. So in the past, when I've seen that an issue is coming to the fore, like immigration, I can go out and look for those small programs that address that particular issue. So right now we have how many, Julie? 3, 4 programs
in the USA and then
in the US that are dealing with specifically with immigration. And when the tide turned in this country several months ago, we reached out to those programs to offer additional help to them. We have one program out down in Miami where every month there's a rent crisis for some family. And these are families. The one we helped last year, the husband and wife were both lawyers in whatever country they came from. And now husband and wife, children and grandchildren are living in a 1-bedroom apartment in Miami. And their adult daughter gets sick. She can't work. What happens to the rent? It's a one-shot deal. When she's better, she'll be back to work. And there's stories and stories like that constantly. So that's an area that we have been intensely involved in. And in terms of climate, I'd say if there was anything that I was disappointed in, it's that, in that we haven't really identified any programs that fit our model, meaning small, founder-driven, that address that. And if anybody knows of one, tell me, don't tell them, because it is an area where I feel that we've been very deficient. Times have changed, and issues like hunger are still important, but there are so many other needs right now. And I feel very proud that we've been able to address things almost before they come to the general public.
and we actually have one on our list of vet for this year. We were really excited about.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's the one in the Jewish community right now, Dayenu, was big when it started. It was well funded, and so we never really stepped into that. Any other questions?
I just have one point of clarity, Naomi. Here I am,
Yeah.
Charles Pierre. We met earlier, and I want you to see me live in person and see the gray hairs yourself.
Yes,
I
see
talked
that.
about those. First of all, thank you to everyone for the testimonies. I'm a new founder, and so it's somewhat interesting to be on this call with all the folks sharing success stories, because I'm aiming to be able to have those kinds of success stories myself with the organization that I've founded, Alfalfa House, that seeks to curb the loneliness epidemic. And so I have to give a special shout out to Naomi for your generosity and your time earlier today, and just saying hi. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. I never know when my phone rings. I never know who's going to be on the other end. And a week ago, it was a gentleman who left a very long message and said his name was Charles Pierre and told me all about what he was doing. And I went to a website and I read it, and I had a lot that I thought about it. And I have to say that Charles was very persistent, and he got my attention. And I said, I will give you time this afternoon to talk. And now he wants to hire me. So, so I'm not worried about my next life.
Not sure I can afford you, but I very much do.
So thank you for coming on, Charles. I hope this was an inspiration to you. Anyone else? Thank you, Susan. We all need a Naomi. So you'll all have a Julie. And this has never been a job. This is a labor of love. And I've said this many times, it gives me a lot of oxygen, and I'm not planning on having my oxygen cut off July 1st. So one way or the other, I'll continue to do this work. It's really important. And we are only where we are now because of all of you who, and all of our other donors who have stood by us. It's somewhat amazing to me that we have exceeded $35 million in 18 years. Run from this little old room in a house in Millburn, New Jersey. Very low overhead, no rent. Soon moving further south. But it has been a privilege. It truly is a privilege. And the fact that I had this privilege not once in my life, but twice, I feel that I'm somehow starstruck. If there's nothing further, thank all of you for staying on. Julie, you have any words to add?
Thanks everybody for everything for the last 18 years. We're really excited about what has been and what's to come, and your partnership. And if you want to learn more or be engaged in any way, reach out, because as Naomi said, it's everyone together that made all of this possible. And so thank you.
Thank you all.
Well, let's